These are the La Sportiva G-Summits. Weighing in at just 30 ounces or 850 grams, these boots are built to give you maximum performance while keeping things light and nimble. And you've got to remember, that's the weight for a double boot. Other double boots weigh in at around 37 ounces or 1,050 grams. What's really unique about the G-Summit is its versatility, as it can be used as both a single boot and a double boot. Here's how it works. When you need the added insulation and protection of a double boot, simply slip in the included thermal bootie. On the other hand, if you prefer a lighter, more streamlined setup, or if you're facing warmer conditions, you can switch the included thermal insole to turn it into a single boot. It's that easy. Now, if you're familiar with the G-Tech, then a lot of the G-Summit's features won't surprise you, as the G-Summit was built around the G-Tech platform. What this means is that you get a boa system that gives you a precise fit, weatherproof zipper, and a water-repellent internal gusset to keep the elements out of the boot, and a unique sole that features a split compound, Vibram Ice Tech and Durastep, as well as featuring Vibram Spring-Lug technology. When it comes to the fit of the boot, it has a wide, generous fit, not too dissimilar from the G-Summit. As for sizing, I size these boots in my regular size, a 44, and they fit perfectly. So what's it been like to climb with the G-Summits? Well, to have an overarching statement, I felt like climbing with the G-Summits was very similar to climbing with the G5 Evos. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it's not necessarily as groundbreaking as I thought that this boot would be. Now, kind of going back to a video that I did a while ago talking about the G-Summits, I was really excited about these boots as they kind of offered something different. They offered a true quiver killer option, as you can use the G-Summits as a single boot or you can use it as a double boot. And a lot of traditional double boots and single boots, you can't really interchange. And this one, you get a 2-for-1. Now that's really cool because, again, it was something that hasn't been offered really at all. And for Sportiva to do it, it was pretty big. And for them to also do it on the same platform as the G-Tech. And the G-Tech is a really great ice climbing boot and mixed climbing boot and even dry tooling boot. They climb really good. So you already know from the get-go that these are going to climb pretty good. Now, why did I say that they climb like the G5 Evos and not the G-Tech? Well, they're definitely not as light as the G-Tech, but that obviously makes sense. But I feel like when I was using the G-Summits in a double boot mode, I never could get the boa dial as locked down as I wanted it to be. I feel like this has been the only really big gripe I've had with the G-Summits is throughout a whole season of use, I feel like the inside of the boot has been packed out a decent bit, because at the beginning of the season, I know the boa system was getting as tight as I wanted it to be, pretty close to how tight I like my G-Techs to be, but by the end of the season, I couldn't get it tight at all, and it felt very similar to my G5 Evos, where I always ran into the issue of I was going to all the way until the dial wouldn't want to tighten anymore, but I still had movement in the boot. Now, you could just say, well, why didn't you just wear a bigger sock or something to that extent? And at the beginning, I did notice that with these boots, if you're using them in double boot mode, you get this bootie. And this bootie is essentially just like a neoprene sock in a lot of ways, but it's got a hard thermal insole sewn to the bottom. But in a majority of ways, this is like a neoprene sock. And I found that when I use this bootie, I actually can't put my big winter weight socks on because I can't get them in there. And even if I did get them in there, my toes get so crammed that it feels like I'm in a climbing shoe and it's very uncomfortable. So I actually had to use a slightly thinner sock to be able to just fit in these. Now, what I will say, though, is even using a thinner sock with these, it didn't really compromise the warmth at all. I feel like the warmth using the double boot with the G-Summit, it's really good. And I remember going out on a few days this season where it was negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was fine. I was warm. And that has that's been a new experience for me and one that I really enjoy. So definitely didn't notice a big performance difference with having to use a thinner sock, just be able to use the double booty. But the only big difference I found was it kind of messes with the fit. Now, when I'm talking about the fit, I'm mostly talking about the space in the boot and the fact that there's not, at least with my foot, because I have a little bit lower volume of foot, I don't get all the boa engagement at all. So by the end of the season, when the boot was pretty packed out, my heel was lifting a lot, and that heel lift was starting to drive me nuts. And I didn't really know what to do at that point because I didn't know how I can get more volume into the boot until I decided to finally put the insert, the thermal insert that you have to put in to use it as a single boot. I just put it in there and I put the neoprene sock in with it. So by adding the thermal insert with the double boot, I feel like I finally got it as tight as I'd want it to be. And it's pretty dang close to the fit that I have with the G-Tech. I did notice though that I probably need the insert to be packed out a little bit more because on a few days my toes were kind of going numb just because there's a lot of pressure on them. So if the insert was packed a little bit more, I'd probably have more room overall. And that's just something that will come with time. As the more you use them, the more packed out they'll be and the better fit that you'll get with them. But it is kind of counterintuitive, though, to be doing what I'm doing to get a better fit because specifically La Sportiva tells you that you take out the thermal insert when you're using the booty and you put in the thermal insert when you want to use the boot as a true single boot. So it definitely feels weird in that aspect to just be ignoring that and just doing what works. And I guess in general, too, it leaves some question to if you were just going to use the boot as a single boot just with the thermal insert. I don't know if you could get this boot as tight that you need to feel comfortable on it just with the thermal insert, as there's definitely more volume in this boot because they have to accommodate for that booty. So I'd probably describe using this boot as a single boot as not the tightest fit, and it's a little bit sloppy. And using it as a double boot definitely feels better because it fills the space in the boot, and it makes more sense because, again, this boot was built around having a booty in it, but it's also built around being a single boot. And this is where some weird quirks kind of come in with the G-Summit. Now, what quirks am I talking about? Well, I did notice that these boots were incredibly hard to zip up when you are using the booty. For whatever reason, it just adds more bulk to your ankle area, and that makes just the zipper incredibly hard to zip up. I mean, I remember days this season where I tore up my fingers just trying to get the zipper up. And that comes in a stark contrast to something like the G-Techs where they just zip up super easily. Like, I've never had a problem putting my G-Techs on at the car when we're at the Craig, whereas these, it's almost a whole process just to get them, and there's a lot of grunting to just get them zipped up, and that's a little bit weird. But it also makes sense that they have to deal with this problem because the boot still has to be slim enough to be a single boot, but also has to stretch and accommodate a whole booty. So they made it work, but I almost feel like there might have been some better way to do it. Now, that's just one quirk with it. And I did kind of bring up the quirk about how it fits and how, kind of have to finagle with that. But another weird quirk about this boot is that this boot is the same size as my G-Techs. It's sized in a 44. And yet this boot is longer than my other pair of boots. So be aware of that your crampons won't actually fit the same. And in my instance, that actually was kind of a downside about this boot because I was using the Petzl darts. And for how my darts are set up on the G-Tech, it's kind of pushing the middle bar because that bar only goes up to right around a 44. So when I went to fit the darts to the G-Summits, I actually couldn't. And in fact, I actually had to use the links with the G-Summits because the links had a longer linking bar. So if you get the G-Summits, just be aware that they are going to be longer than your regular single boot. And again, that's because they have to build the boot around a booty, so they have to be a little bit bigger. So it makes sense, but it's just a weird quirk about the boot. Now, other than those few little quirks, this boot is still a really good boot. Now, I know I mentioned that they climb similar, or they felt similar to the G5 Evos, but they realistically climb a little bit better than them. I mean, they are using the G-Tech platform, and it is apparent. Like, you can feel the climbing performance with these boots, and a majority of that comes from that they're a pretty lightweight boot. I mean, even as a double boot, they're really lightweight, and they feel light underneath your foot, and they don't feel like you're picking up this heavy boot every time you're trying to step up. And that is pretty important in terms of like approaching into a climb and even just climbing when dealing with foot fatigue. So these boots do climb really good, and they are sensitive enough. Like, I was pretty curious on how the sensitivity would be with dealing with a double boot. Like, would it not be secure enough in the boot, and would there be just a lot of like empty space and rubbing with the inner booty, and like, would you not be able to feel anything? Would it feel muted in ways? And that wasn't the case. Like, I was having to do a lot of precise climbing this year, and these boots didn't get in my way. Now, would I say that they're as nimble and as precise and as sensitive as the G-Techs? I wouldn't. But I was also using these as a double boot for the majority of the season. And that's something that was invaluable to me because I like to have my feet warm. I mean, after a few years of being able to climb with single boots, I've just accepted that my feet get cold during the ice climbing season, that I will always have those days that my feet just freeze. And with the G-Summits, I was actually having warm feet this year. And that's something that, again, was invaluable to me. Like, it's something that made my experience ice climbing that much better. But I think that's an important thing to mention about these boots, is that they take the double boot formula and just streamline it. And what you get is a pretty precise and nimble double boot that climbs really good without having to sacrifice a lot. And like, is this boot capable of high elevation climbs? I mean, it is and it isn't. You could probably do some 6,000 meter objectives, probably, but you'd probably have to do them fast and light. They're not going to be this expedition boot. But in terms of ice climbing, they're perfect. Like, these boots handle cold weather really well. And again, having to deal with negative 20 to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I was happy to have these. Like, I had more confidence going outside in these than I've had in any other year where we've had that temperature. So, I mean, for that alone, just knowing that your feet aren't going to be miserable and cold, that's awesome. And it's a great tool to have just to make it easier to get up that climb. I mean, if it is as simple as just knowing that your feet are going to be warm, I mean, that's important. So overall, I've been really impressed with these boots, and I definitely think that they are a quiver killer. But I could definitely see where you might just want to use these as your double boot for ice climbing when the weather's getting cold and you know that you're going to have some miserable belays. I feel like these are the boots that I'm going to reach for. Now, if there's anything that will keep me away from using the G-Summits, it might be that they share some same durability problems as the G-Tech. And I've made videos on these problems before, and they're just apparent within these boots. I mean, the outsole is really soft, and I've got chunks of rubber taking out, and I didn't really approach on any abrasive surfaces this year. And like, the air injected rubber rand is torn up, and the same thing, like, I wasn't going through like granite or limestone or anything like that. I mean, for the majority of the year, I was walking on snow-covered approaches. Like, the durability it's something to be aware of. But you do also have to realize that you are taking a trade-off with durability because of how lightweight these are. I mean, these are seriously lightweight, and I can't stress that enough, of just how lightweight they are and how it is insane to have a double boot be this light. I mean, it's pretty cool to have a nimble double boot and to feel like you still have sensitivity. But that lightweightness does come with a cost. And unfortunately, it's a durability cost. But I still think the performance of these boots generally outweighs the durability issues. Generally. But overall, these boots are a really great ice climbing boot. And if you're looking for a lightweight ice climbing boot that's also a double boot, I'd definitely consider the G-Summits, as they've been pretty great this year.